bowl season at this point's pretty much wrapped up. And my biggest takeaway, bowl season sucks. I used to love it. But opt-outs have absolutely killed it. Let's be honest, the playoffs should be expanded. At this point, we all know that. Listen, two of the biggest bowl games I was excited about was Florida, Oklahoma. Opt-outs killed that game because Florida's pretty much whole receiving core did not play. Like 38 of like the 42 touchdowns, I think that's the number I read earlier, that Kyle Trask threw were to receivers and Kyle Pitts, the tight end that opted out. UNC had quite a bit of opt-outs as well. And that was the other game that I was excited to watch, UNC Texas A&M. They had quite a bit of opt-outs, and it ended up coming back to bite them as they ended up losing late. Very late in the game. With like 3 minutes to go, they gave up like 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, the opt-outs are killing bowl season. If you enjoy that as a college football fan, you know exactly how I feel. It's frustrating. Because the best bowl game that I watched was the Cure Bowl, personally. And it's not even really that close because there wasn't like opt-outs in that game. Those were two teams just fighting it out amongst each other, and it was an entertaining game. And that was the best bowl game I watched. And it probably shouldn't have been because it wasn't the two most talented teams. No way Liberty and Coastal Carolina would have matched up versus anybody else. But it was the funnest that I watched because they were battling back and forth. They were evenly matched. But other games, they were supposed to be evenly matched and fun games to watch, just were not. I mean, if you watched that North Carolina-Texas A&M game and you watched the first quarter and a half, you probably turned it off. Because it was getting to be somewhat of a snooze fest. There wasn't a lot of points being scored. Both offenses were massively struggling. And the defenses, yeah, they were playing good, but that's because the offenses were just failing to execute on anything that was happening. And let's be honest. We all know that expanding the playoffs is going to massively help bowl season. You're going to incentivize these players that are opting out to play. Because some of these players are on teams that if you expanded the playoffs would be competing for championships. They're going to play. That's their end-all be-all goal, to win a championships. Let's be honest. The playoffs are just starting to get stale. If you watched the two playoff games, you thought you knew what the outcome was going to be, and one of them probably turned out to be right. I thought that Alabama was going to beat Notre Dame for sure. They did that. The scoreboard said it was closer than it was, but let's be honest, it was a dominant win by Alabama. Notre Dame came in with the backdoor cover, so if you betted on them, good for you. If not, oh well, I didn't bet the game. So, and the other game, Ohio State, Clemson. Ohio State just pummeled Clemson. I mean, Clemson really didn't play very well at all. I mean, their offensive coordinator had COVID, so that kind of messed them over. They didn't really have opt-outs, but then, the offensive line couldn't block anything, so there was that. And Ohio State ended up winning, but the game wasn't close at all. And, either way, you're going to get blowouts if you expand it or not. That's going to happen because, especially in a season with COVID, because you really don't know who teams are like you thought you did. And I thought Clemson was a good team. A lot of people said they were maybe a little overrated. That turns out to be right, I guess, as they got pummeled by Ohio State. But if you expand the playoffs, you're going to get more matchups. There's a chance that an upset happens. There's a chance that a blowout happens. There's a chance that a close game happens. Because that's football. Either way, it's going to happen. And, every national championship game over the last 7 years has featured Ohio State, Clemson, or Alabama. And even back those numbers up even more, Alabama and Clemson have made 6 of the last 7, because there's only been 7, college football playoffs. Ohio State's appeared in 4, and Oklahoma has appeared in 4. So it's consistent that you're going to see the same teams over and over again in those 4 spots, the big names in college football, the people that dominate the recruiting, and the people that just tend to be on top. Yeah, we're going to see that regardless of whether you expand it or not. But let's throw Florida in there for once. Let's throw Cincinnati in there for once. Georgia. I mean, there were some teams this year that I think could have competed for a championship that just was not given that opportunity because they were not one of the top 4 schools. And let's be honest, if you give us 8 teams, you're going to see more competitive games. That's just how I feel. At this point, I'm starting to get frustrated with college football because it's been very eerily similar every single year. It feels like we get the same matchup every single year in the playoffs and every single year in the championship. It's starting to get to be the point where it's not interesting anymore and it's not all that fun to watch. And, next year if the playoffs don't get expanded and we see very similar teams to what's in it this year, because that's probably what we'll see, and we'll probably see very similar outcomes. And let's be honest, college football is not going to change anything until we stop watching, and we're going to continue to watch, and that's the big problem. So, because I'm not going to stop watching, I'm still going to watch it. I know myself. There's no way if it's on, then I'm not going to put it on. So, but I just want to see it expanded. At this point, it's starting to get boring, like I said.